Alright, so welcome back. This is the Table of Brotherhood. Once again, this is Brother Alex. That's
Brother Willis.
Brother Nick.
And this is the Table of Brotherhood. Today's episode, like I said last week, is going to be about men and women and the relationships in between. We have some focus questions. These are points that we want to try to hit throughout the conversation, and they are the fault. What's the man's part in the drastically increasing problems between the male and the female, the black male and the black females? Communication. Why is it so challenging for a man to communicate to a woman? A woman's financial success. Is it really an issue for men? Number 4, emotions. Do men express their emotions or our emotions well enough, if at all? Careers and jobs. To a man, does it determine his worth? And lastly, do black men effectively value all black women? So, as usual, I'll start off, and I'll say that when it comes to fault, I want to say that we do have, I'm not going to say we take all the blame, but I think that we're built to handle a lot of weight. So, this is important. I remember when I was growing up, it's like I saw where videos were going. I think it was actually MC Hammer's, one of MC Hammer's videos. He had like a whole bunch of women, and it was like at a pool or something. And that was his video, and I looked at it. I didn't like it because I like MC Hammer's videos because he danced. And you know, when he danced, he was always doing something. He always had nice dances. The video that was off the chain. But then he was doing like the pumps in the butt or something like that.
Yeah, it was a great song. Great song.
Great song.
Shouts out to MC Hammer.
But I didn't like
MC Hammer, where are you now?
Well, I couldn't vibe with it. And I think that was the last video I actually started watching, because after that, I think the street stuff really started coming out. The NWA and all of they started pushing out the real stuff. I didn't like those type of videos. And even as a kid, I saw that what people saw, what the other brothers saw, is what they started portraying. Even as a kid. So I didn't watch that stuff. I left that alone.
Just to piggyback on a couple of things that you said. First of all, I did enjoy that video by MC Hammer. As a teenager, as a kid, preteen, that was my first exposure to like what women really look like outside of the women in my home. But to address the question, I think it's the perception. And it does go back to those videos. It does go back to the things we let influence our minds. Per se, I would say as a man that I'm very vain. I'm a vain individual. So there are a lot of things that may not have any worth that seems to be valuable to me. So sometimes we look for the pretty woman, or is our woman pretty enough? And sometimes that drives us away or drives us out of the relationship. Sometimes what we think another person should do causes us to think that maybe there's something out there better. So we may not put 100% into our relationships with women. Furthermore, I think if a man doesn't feel valued to the point where he feels valued, that causes them to drive away. And so we have to look at those things of how we view ourselves and how we view our counterpart. And a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I don't think men take seriously every relationship that they have. I think that's the police calling. But every man doesn't take responsibility of their relationships. Some relationships are just, they're just with somebody. They're just with somebody to pass the time. And so if that's the case, then I can see why, a lot of relationships may not work the way we particularly want them to work, because we may not have a end goal or end objective of what we truly want to see.
I don't know. I think the question, when I hear the first question about fault, and I think Brother Alex alluded to something in terms of what used to happen back in the day. And I think that's where the fault lies. The solution, we'll get to the solution later, but the fault lies in our acceptance of the European model. The European model that said patriarchy is the way. The European model that said, we're going to reign over our women. We have the right to beat our women. Even going back to like the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb said you could beat your wife or something as long as it was not as thick as your thumb. That's a European way of looking at things. So, I mean, we accepted that model because in this country, we didn't have power. And so when you don't have power, you exert the little bit of power you do have, whether it be over younger children, your older Asian parents, whether it be the woman that you're with. So that's the fault, the fact that we kept accepting that even after so-called we got free, that's on us. We need to change that model around. But that's where it came from, because it's not natural to the way that we were doing things. I mean, you had queens, you had women were the head of the household. Actually, in some cases, the lineage was passed down through the woman, not through the man, in some African cultures. So that's the way we did things. So the accepting of that and the destruction of our culture, that's on the Europeans. The solution is all up to us.
True that.
Because we can't count on Europeans to fix it. They're the one that broke it.
When it comes to understanding women, absolutely impossible. You can never understand women. I'm gonna tell you why. It's not that you don't have the intellectual fortitude to do so. You won't live long enough to get all that information. You won't. But to understand a woman, singular, your woman, the one that you're messing with, the one that you're dating, courting, whatever, that's very, 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 very plausible. Very possible. All you have to do is listen. In my personal experience, a woman who's interested in you will tell you everything that she feels that you need to know, some of what she wants you to know, and for a while, none of what she doesn't want you to know. All right? And all this is given to you in a fairly good amount of time. So listen. Guys' problems are that we don't listen. We don't listen enough. We don't listen to what she's saying. We just listen to what we want to hear. And this isn't anything new. We already know this. But my thing is to do less talking and do more listening. Because I find that women are more eager to open up to me because they know I listen. And I can regurgitate everything that they said, not just immediately, but 5 or 6 days, even weeks. Later on, I can say, "Oh yeah, I remember you said this, that, and the other." Communication is very simple. The whole Mars from women, that's a bunch of bull. To tell you the truth. In my personal experience, it's a bunch of bull. We all from Earth. We all came out of another female, and that female came out of another female, and so on and so forth. We all started as seeds from other dude. There's nothing drastically different between us. In America, most of us speak English, give or take, but meaning we all speak English. It's nothing different. It's all about whether you're listening or whether you're not. That's where the miscommunication comes in.
All right. First of all, rule number 1, fellas, shut up. Like just that simple. Just shut up. You out on a date, shut up. Let a woman do majority of the talking. And then you can understand what Brother Bush is saying, because if you let a woman talk long enough, she'll tell you everything that needs to be known in order for the relationship to form and function. Second rule, you gotta have some type of analytical and reasoning skills. You have to be able to take what they're saying, 1, at face value, and then 2, you have to start looking for the underlying meanings. You have to hear the undertones. You have to understand, why is she imparting this information to me? The third thing we have to do, you have to be willing to compromise. And compromise is a word that is used in marriage, but marriage is only a long-standing relationship. So if you're not willing to compromise on day 1, at day 756, you still may not be willing to compromise because you're going under the initial impression that I didn't have to compromise in the beginning. The problem that we have with our communication is we say what we think is right, and we're not willing to accept the fact that sometimes we may be wrong. And then when we're proven wrong, we always hate to hear "I told you so." We hate to hear that. But at some point, you have to understand that if a woman has gotten to a point where she had to say, I told you so, that means she should have told you in the beginning and you should have listened. And if she didn't tell you, then it may not be the woman for you. Simple as that. We have to learn to be able to communicate what we want, what we need, and what we won't stand for. And through my own personal experience of talking to women, all a woman can do is respect it. She may not necessarily like it, but she will respect it. And I can say that's more than what most men will do, because most men would just say, well, I don't care what you're saying, I'm going to do it my way, and if you don't like it, there are plenty more out there. But I'll tell you, there's not plenty more out there for you specifically. There's a lot, but there's only a hand select few that you're going to get the chance to interact with. And we're going to discuss that later on about why you're not able to get out here and meet this plethora of women that you want to communicate with, but you're not finding the opportunity to.
Communication, I think, on both sides, but specifically on the man's side, I think people don't communicate fully out of fear. I think that's the main thing. You're afraid of, let's say you got issues, you got baggage, and you don't want people to know what that baggage is. You ain't resolved your, hate for your father, your love for your mother, that dude that beat you up when you was a little kid. You haven't resolved whatever it is. You have not resolved it, and you're afraid to let somebody else know about it. That's really what it's about. And so when we have these issues or ways that we look at the world, and we try and keep it a secret until we get deep into the relationship, we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Right.
Because then when you do let it out, the person that the woman thought she was getting is not who she getting. And so now you don't lie to her, you don't cut yourself off from somebody that you really might have should have been with, and all because of fear. And we talked about in the first episode, one of the characteristics of a man is fearing nothing but God, fearing nothing but the Creator. And so when you exhibit fear, when you exhibit a lack of communication because you're afraid of what the outcome is going to be, you're showing that you don't have an understanding of who you are and what God is.
Yep. Man, about that fear, man. I remember something similar to that. There was a conversation we was having, and I'm not going to go too much into detail with it because it was actually coming from a woman's perspective. But basically, the bottom line is that when you let fear dictate your actions, even in communication, nothing good is going to come of that. Nothing good is going to come of that. Okay. Yeah.
You don't choose a business because it's pretty or sexy. You choose a business because you researched it and it has a good foundation and it's going to be successful.
Exactly.
That's the same thing we need to be doing in a relationship. We look at the superficial.
Okay.
We don't even get into the communication. We don't even get into, this woman says she got a bad temper, and I like talking off of the mouth. This ain't gonna really work. It ain't gonna be, that's like, you like to eat donuts and you open up a donut shop. You ain't really gonna make too much money. You're gonna be eating all the donuts.
Yeah.
So, we need to really look at it as a business in terms of our relationship. And with a business, you gotta do a lot of communication. You gotta talk. When you try to open a business, you talk to people. Is this a good location? Is this a good bit? The same thing with a relationship. I need to find out everything I need to know about you, because
Including your parents,
everything.
your family.
What's your view on family? Because otherwise, you're setting yourself up. You got people who are married and never even found out what your view on family is.